Chapter 2, Wingspan, Nature's Symphony.
Step into the world of avian exploration and discovery as passionate bird enthusiasts, researchers, and collectors. Your journey takes you into the heart of lush wildlife preserves where you'll seek to attract and nurture the most magnificent birds imaginable. These feathered wonders bring vitality to your habitat, each one weaving a tapestry of vibrant combinations. Delight in the whimsical charm of a bird feeder dice tower, where you'll gather an array of delectable food tokens to entice your avian guests. Carefully tend to the colorful eggs nestled in your nests, each one holding the promise of new life and the potential for the breathtaking beauty. Dive into the rich diversity of bird species drawn from the depths of nature's palette and unleash their unique talents and abilities to enhance your sanctuary. As you embark on this exhilarating journey, remember that victory awaits those who can cultivate the most enchanting bird haven. With 4 rounds of thrilling competition ahead, it's time to spread your wings and soar towards glory in the captivating world of avian delight.
Welcome
and welcome
to Board Game Doctrine.
Bringing theology to your table.
Literally.
All right, guys. Hey, it's good to be here with you. And today, if you haven't figured it out yet, we are going to be discussing Wingspan. Wingspan's a great game. One of my most recent, probably favorite games I've played. So, Wingspan, just to give you a little brief overview, it's 1 to 5 players, ages 14 plus. It is a little more complex. So a little bit higher of an age, and 40 to 70 minutes, made by Stonemeyer Games. That is a Wingspan in a nutshell. We're going to be talking about concepts, theological aspects, family takeaways from this episode. So stick around, and we'll get to all that. So first, Brad, let's start with the main thematic concept of Wingspan.
Well, it's going to be nature conservation.
In a broad sense.
Yeah, broad sense. Because
nature conservation.
You're literally trying to make a habitat suitable for a wide array of different bird species.
Yeah. So thematically, you're keeping some birds. Mechanically, this is an engine building game. Brad, what's an engine building game for those that may not know?
Well, Adrian, I'll tell you. An engine building game, and as far as Wingspan goes, is as you are basically attracting these birds to your habitats or placing them on your board. Most of these birds have some sort of power that they bring to the table, which we'll discuss a little bit when we get going. And as you play more and more birds, the way the game system works, you get to activate each one of those that has such a power, and it'll give you a little bit of something. So the more birds you have, the more things they'll give back, whether it's eggs or food, things they gather.
Yeah, and just a broad engine building. You're literally building an engine
of birds.
But engine building games, you have different components that you try to get working together to make the engine go. And whoever's going the fastest and farthest with their most efficient engine is going to win the game. And like you mentioned, that's with this game, it's birds. And what can the birds do for you? How do you build your engine around birds? So that's nature conservation and engine building game. So let's talk about our faith and how does this game, how can it connect to Christianity? There's several ways that we have here. And the first one is a pretty obvious one. Creation.
Yeah.
God created the world and everything in it, including 1,100, I don't know how many bird species.
A lot.
a lot of bird species. Because there's a lot of birds in this game.
Even
tons. ones I never even heard of before. And there's expansions that go to different regions.
Yeah. I think at this current time, there's 3 expansions.
Yeah, Oceania, European, and Asia, right?
Yeah.
So, tons of different birds. So creation is the most obvious connection to our faith. God created everything. Stewardship. How do we handle creation? How do we handle the thing God has given us in this game? How are you handling your bird and your bird habitat, basically? Education. Now, this is maybe a little bit smaller of one, but we can learn about these things.
Yeah. One of the things I love is each and every bird card tells you which continent they're from, how big the average wingspan of that bird is, hence the name Wingspan, and what type of nest that they make. And then at the very bottom of every card, there's a little flavor text that will give you just a little nugget about that specific bird.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you can learn a lot as far as birds go when playing Wingspan.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, this was created by 2 bird watchers, basically. Is that correct?
I don't know, but I would not be surprised.
I honestly, I think that's the case. So, this isn't just made by some people who don't care about birds and just are trying to fit a theme to something they've made up.
You can definitely see
this is made
the passion
by,
put into this. Yeah.
So a little bit of education. Some negative aspects you could say is materialism, because you're trying to store, you're trying to hoard stuff almost, to say it in a bad way, I guess. Trying to hoard stuff, hoard your eggs, hoard your food from people. So a little bit of materialism that you could teach on, and last one I have here is competition over conservation. Yeah. So I think again, if this was designed by bird enthusiasts, they're really trying to educate the world on birds and conservation of birds. And sometimes we've all taken games too far and been more competitive than the true goal of what the game is. So competition over conservation.
Yeah, and this one does a pretty good job.
It does. It's not super competitive, which we'll get to how you play later. But there's not a lot of competition. You can win and you can lose, but you're not really trying to outdo other people. You're trying to build your best engine, build your best bird habitat. So let's do some. Let's look over some biblical references for these connections with our faith. So first, creation. I mean, do I have to name the verses that tell of creation?
All of them.
All of them. Psalm 104:24. How many are your works, O Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Fits perfectly with Wingspan. Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what he has made, so that people are without excuse. Creation literally is a evidence for God.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
And in our prologue episode, the very first episode that we've done, I explained my passion for apologetics, and the argument through the creation of our universe is a very strong one. For the evidence of God.
And you don't even really have to think about it. Like, I know some people will say, well, if it was made, it has to have a maker, right? That's a big apologetic thing. But just seeing creation is just like, that's God.
Evidence.
That's God.
Big time.
That's God. One of my favorite verses also, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies above proclaim his handiwork. So, I mean, literally all of creation is evidence for God and glorifying God.
If we don't cry out,
the rocks
will.
Yeah. So obviously creation is a big aspect. Stewardship, part of creation, is Genesis 2:15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Yeah. We're literally called to take care of what God has created. He's given us dominion over the earth and all that is in it, over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, creatures of the ground. So we're called to take care of it. We should be good stewards of what he has given to us. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. So we've been given this thing. God has entrusted us with creation. We must prove ourselves faithful to that stewardship of stuff. And how that ties in with Wingspan is we're literally trying to conserve species of birds and have them in our habitat.
Providing them with the things that they need.
Yep. Okay. And then another positive aspect is education. Proverbs 1:5, let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. Here's Psalm 19:1 that I already quoted. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Education, even though it's not a directly Christian thing, stewardship might be a little more Christian, but everyone wants to be educated. But there are certain ways that we can be educated. I would say the education of this game points to the stewardship and the creation. So I'm not sure if the creators of the game were Christian. I'm not going to presume one way or the other, but their ultimate goal was to educate you about birds. So
exciting, right?
Exciting to learn about birds, which, I mean, really, the game makes it exciting.
It does.
So learning was the ultimate goal of the game anyway. And if we're going to learn and be educated, then we should be educated about the things of God.
Yeah.
Stewardship and creation and bird species.
And have fun doing it.
That's right. So a negative aspect, we could say materialism. Matthew 6, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And of course, 1 Timothy says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So, I'm not going to say that just because you're hoarding your food in Wingspan that you are, sinning because you're materialism, but it's a good teaching point to whoever you're playing with, like, hey, we store these things here, and even in the game, you're not storing them for yourself. You're storing them for the birds.
It's for your birds. And if you just sit on your food and don't use it, then you're not going to be able to attract birds to your habitats.
Yeah.
So it's just going to sit there and rot.
So literally, in the game, do not store for yourself food because it's not going to do anything for you. And scripturally, do not store for yourself treasures because where your treasure is, there your heart is. So store for yourself treasure in heaven.
I'm not going to store a rat for me. I'm not going to eat a rat.
Yeah.
But this peregrine falcon might.
Exactly.
So I'm going to use that rat and play a bird.
That's right. And then finally, the last negative aspect that we're going to talk about is competition over conservation. Philippians, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Galatians 5:26, let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other. So again, Brad, you mentioned it. It's not a super, super competitive game.
No, there are a few different game modes. One of them is one where you can play solo with like an AI system that they have in the game, and then there is a goal board. So it takes place over 4 rounds. Each round has a specific goal you're looking for. There's 2 different sides of that card. One is a little more competitive, but not that bad. It's just whoever has the most gets the most points. And then the other side is a little more friendly. It's just you're all trying to achieve this goal, and if you meet it, great. If you don't, it's not that big of a point difference. And that's typically the side we play on. And the most competitive that I've seen this game get is if someone really wants a bird that's out on the table to be drawn, and someone draws it before you get to it.
Yep.
That's about it.
And that happened to me.
Yes.
Last time we played, there was it wasn't a bird, but it was like one of the goal things that you can do, and I really wanted to do it, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But they got it before me, and I was like, man,
Yep.
I wish I could have got that. That's as competitive as it got. So,
and it's just a handful of points difference, so it's no big deal.
The important thing to remember is the competition should not go over the overall goal of the game, which is, for one, conservation, bird species, and then even above that, God's creation and stewardship of his creation.
And there's just so many different kinds of birds that even if someone was in this game to draw a specific bird that you wanted, there's so many different kinds of that type that you'll probably be able to find one that
Yeah.
that suits your
You may
needs.
draw that next turn.
Yeah.
yeah. But it's a good teaching point about competition. Any game really is a teaching point on competition. So, okay, Brad, let's get into the game mechanics and our sort of experience with Wingspan. So, sort of, if you don't care, walk us through what do you do on your turn? What are you building towards? What are some ways you can do things? How do you play the game?
So I'll keep it brief, but it looks pretty daunting. Whenever I first opened this game, there's so much stuff.
A lot of pieces.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get it. But it's very simple once you've grasped it. On your player board, there are 4 sections. So on your turn, 3 of them are habitats, and one of them is called Play a Bird. You've got Play a Bird, the forest, the plains, and the water area. I don't remember what they call it now. You can do one thing in one of those 4 areas on your turn, and that's it. And that's pretty simple. But you have action cubes that you'll use to show what you're doing. And the birds have specific habitats that they're looking for, that they can live in. They also have specific food that they're looking for, that they like to eat. And based on that, you kind of figure out where you want to place those birds at. Some of them can live in multiple habitats, so you choose what is best for what you're trying to do.
And these are all like real life things.
These are
like
real life things.
This bird can live in the forest, or this bird can live in a forest or a water area.
Yeah.
Like it's
and if you were to get into bird watching, you could go out to these locations where these birds are from, and you may see one.
And what food do they like? Well, that bird likes this food.
Yeah. Berries or insects or whatever it is. So on your turn, you'll pick one of these actions to do, and you'll take that action. Let's say that you play or you. Okay, here you go. So each habitat itself also has something that it's useful for. In the forest, you can go get food. Plenty of bugs and stuff in the forest, and berries, rats, all kinds of stuff. You'll go to forest, and depending on how many birds you have in your forest, you'll either get a little bit or you'll get a little bit more. You'll take that action, and then your action cube will travel all the way back to the left side of your board. And as it's going, it's landing on the birds that you've already played there, and you will activate each one that has an ability to activate.
Yeah, that's
that's the engine building part of it.
So at the early game, you may only get one bird doing something, but by end of game, you're having 4 birds.
Yeah, and the game is nuts. So you've got 5 slots on your player board, 4 birds for each habitat. So a total of 15 birds is what you can have. And by the end of the game, more than likely,
almost doing 15 actions.
You filled that up. And one of the mechanics I really like about this game is you have 8 action tokens. So on your very first turn, you get to do 8 things, which is quite a bit, but you're not getting a lot for it. So you're playing birds and getting food, doing all that. At the end of each round, you take one of your action tokens and you score it on the end of round goal board. So then in the next round, you're 1 action short, which kind of stinks. But as you're going along and playing more birds, the rounds take a little longer because you're doing so much more. You're building your engine, you're growing it, and those 1 actions you do could have 6 different things going on. And you're drawing cards and getting food and doing this and that. And it's a very solid game mechanically.
Yeah.
And like we talked about before, it's not that competitive because you're worried about your habitats. You're worried about the birds you're attracting.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's not really anything you can do to other players. Is that correct?
Not in the base game. There's very little.
Very little.
There was one expansion that might be it was either the Oceanic or the Asia one, where there are a few birds that might say steal a wheat from your opponent and add it to your stockpile, but they get to get another food from the bird feeder. Yeah. So you're getting something specific, and they're getting what's available.
Yeah.
So it's not really a gotcha kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. How do you win the game?
So in winning the game, you'll total up points. Person with the most points wins. Points are determined by how many eggs you have laid on your birds. Each bird has a specific point on it of what it's worth. And you've got your end of round goals. You also have any birds that have cached food on them that they're like storing up for winter, that kind of thing. You can also have, there are goal cards that you'll get at the start of the game, and you may even draw some more during the game, some kind of further out goals you're trying to achieve before the end of the game. Tally all that up, person with the most wins.
Yep.
And a lot of the games that I've played, the points are usually pretty close.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like you're not doing a whole lot, or maybe you're just having a great game. If you look out across the table, you're going to see everyone's pretty much doing about what you are.
Mm-hmm. And it is a game that you invest some time into. It's 40 to 70 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And the number of players you have will
determine that.
That. If you're just playing 2-player, my wife and I, we've played games that might take 30 minutes. Yeah. And your knowledge of the game helps with that, too.
But you're investing that time, and at the end of the game, at least when I played it, it's not so much as like, oh man, I lost because I have the least amount of points. I invested this time and built this cool habitat that's mine.
Yeah, with awesome birds.
Yeah, I lost, but I did what I wanted to do, you know? So, and that's a cool aspect, to where losing, you technically lose, but you don't really lose playing Wingspan. It's just fun, and you get to build what you want to build. So,
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of engine building games are like that. Like, even if I lose, if I built what I wanted to build, I win, because that's what I wanted to do. So the game, again, is 14 plus because it is a little bit difficult. There's a lot of aspects to it. Brad, you even mentioned you were intimidated at first when opening it because there's so much stuff, but it gets easy as you continue to understand the game.
Yeah.
Strategy, I'd say there's tons of strategy in this.
Oh, yeah,
and I mean, I think engine building games are just strategic by nature.
Yep.
Because you're trying to get certain things to, and when you find that cool combo, like, oh, if I get this, that'll make this happen. Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
there's ways where you can, like, if you're wanting to draw a bunch of cards, there's a ton of birds that let you do that. Most of that's going to be in your water because your habitats are forest, which is food, plains, which is where you get your eggs, and then the water habitat is where you get your card draw. And there are a ton of birds that have abilities around that, and you can just get a boatload of hands, no pun intended, or if you need a bunch of food, just whatever you want to do, you can strive for that, and there are ways to do it, and there are a bunch of different ways to do it, which is neat to me.
Yeah. You're never you may not be trying to do the same thing every time you play the game.
No, yeah.
And then as far as the theme goes, the theme fits with the gameplay. It has to fit with it. There's no way it can't fit with it.
Right.
You couldn't. So in our last episode of Love Letter, you could play that game without necessarily knowing what the theme is.
Yeah, you could get some card stock and literally just draw a number and write some words on it.
This game has to have the theme of birds.
Yeah.
Or else you're playing a different game, honestly. Yeah. And on that same line of thought, there is, I guess you could call it an expansion, but it's almost a whole different game called Wingspan.
Yes.
Worm with a Y, meaning dragons, basically, where you're doing the same sort of thing, but it's with dragons. Similar theme, but it's different enough that there's even different elements of the game, different mechanics a little bit, different things you can do to where it's almost a completely different game.
Right. So you can see where the inspiration came from
Wingspan.
From Wingspan, and then how it's kind of laid out and stuff. But
So
this is 100%
a bird game.
A bird game.
A bird watching game. Family friendliness. My experience, besides it being a little complicated for like younger kids, I don't see anything that's not family friendly. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yes.
I may not play with someone who's younger which I guess makes it a little less family friendly. But as far as the theme goes and the elements that are in it, it's pretty family friendly. Wormspan, it's dragons.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you have a kid that's scared of dragons, it may not be family friendly. But besides that, it's a similar sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, pretty family friendly. When I have played this game, I have enjoyed this game. I never thought I would like a game about birds.
And that leads me to this. I need to share this.
Yeah.
I've known about this game basically since its release.
Yeah.
And I waited years before I bought it because it's birds.
Right.
Who wants to play a game about birds? But I kept seeing all these guys reviewing it and saying how great it is, and it's just a top tier game. And I ended up finding it on sale. It wasn't a huge sale, but I'm like, I can get it for cheaper. I know that people say it's good. I'll just get it and try it, and it is worth every penny. Yeah. It's a solid game. Yes, it's birds, but I have gained a new appreciation for birds, mainly just from like all the different kinds and
from the learning
in the learning
birds, yeah.
And the flavor text for each card that explains this bird. Oh, where's it from and how big's its wingspan? How many eggs does it typically lay? What kind of nest does it make? And it's like, holy smokes, there's so much in this game, and it is a little complicated at first. So yeah, maybe your younger players may not be able to grasp it as easy, but my wife and I play this. We'll bust it out. It takes just a little bit to set up, but then we can bust through a couple games. We're satisfied. Yeah. Put it up. It's great for, you got group. Some buddies come over. Yeah, group. It's 1 to 5 players, so I mean that's a decent sized player base for a game of this size and depth, and it's just.
I was sort of the same way. I was like, I don't necessarily want to play about birds, but I kept seeing the reviews like, this game is the top game, and I'm like,
yeah, it was like number 1 on a lot of these charts I was looking at. Like, it's birds.
I mean, I'm glad we got to play it though, because it is really that good. And I'll be honest, as I was doing some research for different episodes, when I did this one, I was like, this is really good. Like, it's just really good. There's no negative emotions that I feel when playing or thinking about this game. So let's discuss some faith integration with family bonding and teaching as we're playing. So with every episode, we're going to give you some prompts, some questions you can ask. Again, not exhaustive, but hopefully you can use it to sort of guide some discussions. So with the first one, appreciation of creation. If you can't tell, I mean, we've been appreciative so far, but some questions you could ask: how do the intricate designs and behaviors of the birds in the game reflect God's creativity and wisdom? I mean, for one, God's creativity, that's one thing. Like, I would never think of these things, right? But his wisdom in creating something to perform a certain way, and then only those things, like a bird that eats bugs, like you mentioned. There's a lot of bugs in the forest. That's where the bird is. That bird's not going to be found in the water, So
right, yeah.
The wisdom in creating birds, right?
Yeah, and then not only that, so you've got birds. That's the category, birds. But then when you look at all the different types of birds, there's so many, and they vary so much, but they're birds. Yeah. So the creativity just in that one species is nuts. Yeah. And you've got birds that can't fly, right, or birds that are gigantic. Some of them, those can't fly, or little bitty birds, little tiny birds like a hummingbird or an ostrich. Right. They're birds.
Both birds.
Yeah. But they all serve
different.
All serve a different purpose.
Yep.
And they all have a place and in what they do, and it's so cool.
Another question you could ask: how can we cultivate a spirit of thankfulness towards God for the beauty of his creation, both in the game and in the world around us? I mean,
how many of us have bird feeders? I'm sure a lot of you guys listen have bird feeders out there. They're pretty.
Bird houses.
Yeah, bird houses.
It's my main project when you're a Boy Scout. You
build a
bird house,
Yeah. It's they are pretty with their vibrant colors.
They're tweeting.
They're tweeting.
And
They
songs.
sing beautiful songs.
And that's something that we can be thankful to God for. Yep.
And we're pretty.
Yeah.
We're pretty. But what I mean by that is we are man. And in the creation of man, we are, that species, I guess you could say. But each one of us, you're not going to find another person like you. You're not going to find anyone else like me. There's no perfect match there. You're not going to find another Brad in the world. I'm uniquely made. You're uniquely made. You were specifically made by God, just like all of these birds and their beautiful colors and their beautiful songs that they sing. We are beautiful creations, and we have a song to sing.
Yeah, and you can be thankful for the birds, but you can be thankful for that as well. You just reminded me of the verse, like God takes care of a sparrow. How much more is He going to take care of us, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of things to be thankful for that this game reminds us of. All right, so let's talk about some prompts for the aspect of stewardship. In what ways can we honor God's command to care for His creation by responsibly managing the habitats and resources in the game?
Bird feeders and birdhouses.
Bird feeders and birdhouses. But again, the way you're managing in the game these birds, we can learn how to steward God's creation, right? How does our responsibility to steward God's creation influence our choices in the game, particularly regarding conservation and sustainability? As you continue to learn, you just continue to get better at the game. I would say.
And then as far as kind of strategy goes along the idea of conservation and sustainability, if you only play birds in your forest, which is where all of the food comes from, you're going to have a ton of food. But when it comes to needing to lay eggs and you don't have any birds in your plains, then you're going to be hindered quite a bit. Or if you don't have any in your water, which is where you draw cards, you're going to have all this food, but you're not going to have any birds to feed them with. So it's like it's a balance.
Managing.
Yeah, it's a balance. You got to take care of all your habitats. You can't just focus on one, and make sure that they have what they need, and in return they'll give you what you need.
Yep. So education, we kind of mentioned that ties in with stewardship and creation a little bit, but how does learning about the different bird species in the game deepen our appreciation for the diversity of God's creation? You mentioned that with the creativity. Sort of a self-explanatory answer. You're learning about what God has made, and I guess we should mention this. These are actual bird species.
They are literal birds. Yeah.
Made up for the game. It's legit. So we're literally learning about what
Love
God
that.
has made. Yep.
And it shows you exactly where they're from across the world.
Yep.
And it's very neat.
Yeah. How can we use the knowledge we gain from playing Wingspan to become better stewards of the natural world and fulfill our God-given mandate to care for His creation? So, similar sort of question to the stewardship question, but use that knowledge to steward God's creation, right? Yeah. Materialism. How can we cultivate contentment and gratitude for the blessing God has given us, rather than becoming overly focused on acquiring more?
I think you may have mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I kind of did just a second ago. If you've got a whole bunch of food and you're just stockpiling it, then you're not able to achieve what it is you've set out to achieve, because you're just hoarding and stockpiling, and that's a hindrance for sure. Hindrance.
Yep. Hindrance.
Hindrance, not a word.
Yeah.
Hindrance.
So, again, anti-materialism.
So you have received these items, use them. It reminds me of the parable of the talents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't bury your one thing. Go out and use it. Yep.
Use it.
How does the pursuit of possessions in the game compare to the biblical warning against the love of money and earthly treasures? Ties along with it. You stockpile something, it's actually going to come back to bite you in the end.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do what you need to do to win the game or grow your habitat, basically. Competition and conservation. How does the spirit of cooperation and collaboration in the game reflect the biblical call to love our neighbors and work together for the common good? It's not a cooperative game, but the nature of it makes it so less competitive that you're playing in a way that's you're not going to be doing harm to others as you're playing.
And it's almost like everybody's playing, but you can look out across all the boards and appreciate what has been played and what they're doing, and they may score more points than you, or you may score more points than them, but it's not an overbearing thing in this game. I've never felt that way in playing Wingspan.
And I'm pretty sure there was even an example when we played not too long ago that I literally looked at someone else's board and was like, that is a cool combination.
That's cool.
Like, I wish I would have got that. That's cool. Yeah. It's more appreciative than competitive, I guess. How can we prioritize the principles of love, humility, and servanthood over the desire for personal success and victory in the game? Same sort of thing. You're really playing this game together rather than against each other. Yes, there's a winner, but we're all playing it together.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's like the worst thing you can do is draw a card that somebody else was going to draw.
Yeah.
And how you play is kind of up to you. If you wanted to play where like you can call cards like, hey, please don't draw this one because I really need it for what I'm trying to do.
You could
do that.
Yeah.
You may be playing with a jerk, though, that I don't care if you need it. I'm going to draw it anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world. So it's like,
There's so many other cards that might do the same thing or similar thing. Yeah. So question for you guys. What's your experience with Wingspan? What do you think about birds and nature and creation? I mean, if you haven't played this, are you sort of like me and Brad were going, it's a game about birds? Like,
right. I was very hesitant.
It's a good game, though. So let us know what you think of the game. Let us know if hopefully this has inspired you to go out and try it at least. Maybe someone you know that has it. But it's a good game. So let us know. Brad, I think we've talked about Wingspan. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap everything up?
Only thought I would have is we had talked about the different or the vast variety amongst birds, and that just being one species, the different colors, sizes, what they do, what they eat, where they live. There's so much just with birds. That's just one species. Our planet is filled with different kinds of species, whether you're talking about mammals, reptiles, the insects, anything. And it's so crazy to think about all of the different types in creation.
Like, it's creative and wise enough to create all these birds.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things. Like, it's God. So infinite creativity and wisdom in creating all of nature and all of creation. And we're literally seeing a tiny sliver of what there is.
Yeah.
And to us, that being so big just shows the infiniteness of God and his wisdom and creation. That is cool. So, all right, guys. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Wingspan. Again, hope you play it. Hope you can teach some of these things to your kids and friends, especially the creation aspect of it. God has created everything for his glory, and guess what? It's good.
It's good.
That's what he said. So we're gonna sign off here. Leave us comments. Find us on social media.
Yeah. Once again, if there's a game you want us to talk about, let us know. And then, should we tease?
Oh, yes. We need to tease next episode. So the next episode we're doing is, I would say it's a little bit less famous of a game, not so well known as. I mean, Wingspan is definitely a well known game, but this one, it's a game called Dice Throne.
Oh yeah,
Dice Throne, super fun game. If you like Yahtzee but also like fantasy based themes, you need to listen to that episode because that's basically what it is. It's fantasy themed Yahtzee with some card. Anyway, I don't want to get into it now, but we're going to be doing Dice Throne for the next episode. Come back and listen to it. Leave us comments, find us on social media, and we will talk to you next time. See you guys.